Migration for nurses is not just stressful and frustrating, it's also expensive, especially those that are moving from developing countries to developed ones. And due to changes in migration laws and WHO rate list, this has made it even more difficult for nurses, thereby prompting them to do what is known as self-sponsorship. On this video today, we are going to be discussing self-sponsorship and the cost involved in doing it, and we are also going to be looking at the WHO rate list, as a lot of us don't really understand what this means and how it affects their recruitment abroad. You hear people talking about the rate list, but you don't really understand what it means or how it affects you. One of the functions of the World Health Organization is to control international recruitment. All countries need to have a certain number of doctors and nurses to support a certain number of population in a country. I think about 48 to every 10,000 people, which is like a standard. Countries that fall short of this will usually be categorized under the red list. So WHO also has the green list and the amber list. For the green list, there is absolutely no embargo on international recruitment. Green for green light, of course. For the amber list, there will usually be some level of understanding between the countries involved to allow recruitment. So put it this way, the red list is there to protect the smaller countries from losing their healthcare workforce to countries who can afford to pay them more and also better. But hey, this is not to mean that you can't find employment. All it means that active recruitment will stop for people in those countries, but you can apply independently without agencies, and you get employed by hospitals or nursing homes. This brings us to our topic for today, self-sponsorship. Because you have to go through this process alone, you will need to pay way more than what you will pay if you were being sponsored by your recruiter. Let's say you now have your NMBI decision letter, which is great. If you don't know how to get to this stage, you will need to check my last video on how to relocate to Ireland. Self-sponsorship is different for different nurses, and I'll explain how using experiences from two people who sponsored themselves to Ireland recently. The first guy applied to different jobs and made sure he let them know he was ready and willing to sponsor himself. The employer set up an interview for him and he actually passed. The employer made one thing clear to him: they want to recruit him as a nurse, but he will have to come in as a carer, and after passing his RCSI exams, he can then start work as a nurse. He agreed to this, signed his contract as a carer. His employer registered him under the General Work Permit, which is for carers. He booked his exams before coming in. He started working as a carer in the same hospital while preparing for his exams. He later wrote and passed, then switched from being a carer to a nurse. Now, to further explain this, I'll relate it to your own story. You have to apply for jobs, and if you get them, yours might be different from this guy. If you get a job as a nurse after signing your contract and other paperwork, you have to register for your RCSI exams by paying a whole sum of 2,800 euros. You might need someone in the country to help make this payment while you pay them the equivalent in your currency. As soon as they have confirmed this payment, they will give you an exams date, usually 10 weeks or so that you have enough time to prepare for your exams. But you should know that exam dates will also depend on availability. Your employer will apply for the ATWS, which is a short-term work permit valid for 90 days, and this is around 250 euros. In these 90 days, you will complete your exams, and if you are successful, you have to register for a critical skills permit, which is also valid for 2 years. But wait, this seems confusing, right? There's a difference between this and the story I just shared. The guy did not need an ATWS because he got a general work permit coming in as a carer. If you find yourself in a similar situation, fine. If not, then you should know that all nurses work in Ireland with a critical skills permit. The critical skills permit is actually better than the general work permit. The difference between them is a topic for another day. But for now, if you have the ATWS or the general work permit, you will now have to apply for your visa. Your visa will take about 5 to 8 weeks to be processed, and some of the documents you will need will include: 1. Your invitation to sit for your exams, your NMBI decision letter, your nursing school certificate, your ATWS, a 6-month bank statement, an international passport, police clearance, and other relevant documents. Your visa will cost about 60 to 100 euros. You should know that in self-sponsorship, your employer will most likely not give you accommodation. So it's all on you to find accommodations near your proposed place of work before coming in. If you have friends you could stay with when you come in, that will be helpful. If not, accommodations in Ireland ranges from 500 to 1,000 euros in a shared accommodation, depending on the location. Once this is all sorted out and you have your visa in place, you can now book your flight. It is advisable that you come into the country at least 2 weeks to your exams date so you can adapt to the environment, but then that's left to you. And that is it. But what if you are not able to get a job? There is a way out, and this is where I'll tell you about the second guy. So he booked his exams and got a date assigned to him. He applied for his visa under the exams visa category. Others will apply under a work visa, but he does not have a job yet, hence exams visa. But with this visa, it is valid for 90 days, and he will be needing a sponsor, or at least sponsor himself if he is capable. And this is not just about RCSI fees, it's everything, including how you take care of yourself when you're in the country for 90 days. You will have to show proof of funds in your account, how these monies came in and how they are going out. You cannot just deposit a large sum of money prior to when you apply for your visa. They are going to refuse it. What he did was get an uncle of his who stood in for him as a sponsor. He got pictures together with his sponsor, and then he submitted documents of this sponsor stating that he has agreed to sponsor him while he is in Ireland. And he also submitted documents of his own bank statement along with all the other documents that we had talked about earlier. You also have to show proof that you are going to be coming back to your home country after your exams. It's an exams visa, not a work visa. So you have to come back and do the proper thing. So he came in, he wrote his exams, and of course he passed. Then he started looking for jobs, because as soon as you are in the country and you have your PIN, getting jobs is as easy as anything. He got a job, but then he had to go back to his country, that's Nigeria. He had to go back and then apply again for a new work permit and a valid visa, because that's the standard. For somebody that is coming in with a work permit or with the ATWS, your employer is already there stated clearly. You only need to change it to a critical skills permit. But for him with an exams visa, it is 90 days, it is 90 days. He has to go back and he has to start doing a visa process again. I think that this last step is actually more difficult, but then it's all about getting your PIN. You got the PIN and you have the job. So going back to your country and coming in again with the same job is actually not a big deal, with the fact that you don't have to waste any time. Even when you are back in your country, you didn't get a job while you were here in Ireland. Even when you go back to your country, you can still apply for jobs, and it is already easy for you. Once you're in your country, there is no problems with you getting jobs. You can always apply for jobs on irishjobs.ie, go to LinkedIn, Indeed, or even go to the hospital website directly. In case you are wondering if this is something worth doing, I'm going to tell you that your employer is going to be reimbursing you after you have passed your exams and commenced work. But then the risks involved here is if you come into the country and you fail your exams, nobody cares if you sponsored yourself or not. You're going back to your country empty-handed. If you have an employer or an agency who is willing to keep you as a carer, then that's okay. But then if you don't have any of that, you're going back to your country empty-handed. RCSI exams is actually doable. They are not out there to fail you. In fact, they make sure that you pass. The pass rate is like Last I checked, 75% out of all the candidates that sit for these exams. You just have to study and you're going to pass. So, you know yourself, you know what you can do. If it is a risk worth taking, you go. So, that is it on self-sponsorship to Ireland. If you have any questions, please drop them on the comment section and I will be there to answer. But then, please like, share and comment on this video. Thank you very much. See you on the next one.